Drop yourself about 2 miles beneath the ocean's surface, and those sleek eels you're familiar with from aquariums and nature documentaries have basically become monsters from a horror movie. They've stretched to like 5 times their normal length. Their jaws have either expanded to ridiculous proportions or just completely vanished. Honestly, they look like literally everything except what an eel should actually look like. Some species develop the power to dislocate their entire mouths for swallowing prey whole like a snake. Others deliberately evolve themselves into blindness to amplify their remaining senses. And some just resorted to cannibalism because apparently when you're living in the void and looking this disturbing, normal rules don't apply anymore. So what made these eels give up their streamlined designs and special abilities just to become these absolute abominations? And what's the real force transforming them into these creatures as they descend further into darkness? If you watched our previous video about squids, you already understand that the deep ocean can have some seriously wild effects on sea life. But what specifically happens to eels down there? Welcome to Ocean Depths. Let us help you find this out. First, let's examine the eels that actually live near the surface where things are still relatively normal. Like this one right here. Surface level, the pretty ones. Meet the snowflake eel, and judging by its adorable name, you can probably tell it's basically the polar opposite of terrifying. These guys hang out in shallow tropical waters, and the reason they don't live way down deep is precisely why they don't look like something from your nightmares. Instead, they've got this beautiful appearance that makes them look almost like living coral art. Their vibrant patterns help them camouflage perfectly with the reef environment, rocks, and sandy bottoms. So unsuspecting prey doesn't notice them lurking until it's too late. Pretty clever hunting strategy, honestly. Another one is electric eel. They are technically knife fish that just happen to have an eel-like body shape. Some confused biologists from centuries ago labeled them as eels, and everyone just rolled with it. They do live in surface-level environments too, but not even in the ocean since they're freshwater river dwellers. These guys can definitely shock you pretty badly, but they're not creepy looking. Twilight Zone, the beginning of weird. But the moment you start descending deeper and cross into the Twilight Zone, you'll encounter your first eel that's been genuinely affected by the deep sea transformation. This is the habitat of the conger eel, a significantly bigger, darker, and more hostile cousin of those shallow water eels. All those beautiful colors? Gone. The body has turned completely monochrome. And since they're existing in the Twilight Zone where light barely penetrates, their eyes have expanded dramatically to absorb whatever minuscule amounts of illumination remain. They're also surprisingly heavy. While snowflake eels tip the scales at maybe 1 or 2 pounds, adult congers can bulk up to 130 pounds. Yeah, these things are seriously thick. Conger eels are essentially what ancient sailors described as sea serpents come to life. But surprisingly, they're not typically hostile toward human divers unless you actively provoke them. They look like something you'd fight in a video game battle, but they're generally pretty relaxed around people. So what caused this transformation? Conger eels adapted specifically for the Twilight Zone environment, where there's barely sufficient light for shadows to exist but not nearly enough for colors to serve any purpose. That's why their pigmentation completely disappeared, and they turned solid black to merge with the murky water around them. And since there's still minimal light penetrating down here, they evolved those massive sensitive eyes to detect even the slightest movement in the gloom. Midnight Zone, where vision dies. So what happens to an eel's eyeballs in an environment with absolutely zero light whatsoever? Well, this is what goes down in the Midnight Zone. The eels inhabiting this realm don't remotely resemble eels anymore. They look more like mutated. Check out the sawtooth eel that can stretch up to 6 feet in length. Its jaw is packed with elongated needle-sharp teeth that protrude outward even when its mouth is supposedly closed, basically locking the eel into this permanent, menacing expression. Its body is jet black and ridiculously thin like paper. And since edible things are incredibly scarce at these depths, it'll consume pretty much anything it encounters, including its own species. Snipe eels look like somebody grabbed the sawtooth eel and somehow distorted its face even further. Their mouths literally can't shut properly because of their bizarre structure, and their bodies have been elongated to an absurdly thin degree. It's legitimately unsettling and doesn't really resemble an eel in any traditional sense, but they're unlikely to pose any threat to you since they're not particularly large creatures. So what's the logic behind this bizarre body plan? Their jaws are engineered to grab prey or literally snipe it while they're drifting passively through the water column. They primarily target shrimp and other tiny crustaceans, capturing food with those backward curved teeth. It's a strange hunting method, but apparently it gets the job done. The transparent ghost. Living at the deepest parts of the midnight zone is Neosalima earthasma, an eel so incredibly rare that marine biologists just refer to it by its technical scientific name because they haven't even gotten around to giving it a proper common name yet. It was initially discovered in 2018, which in the world of marine biology is extremely recent, and scientists have only managed to find a handful of specimens total. The most bizarre thing about this particular eel is that it genuinely looks incomplete, like evolution forgot to finish it. You can literally observe its internal organs through its translucent skin, like it's made from glass or clear jelly. It doesn't possess any visible eyes whatsoever. Whatever eye structures might remain are buried somewhere beneath its skin and are totally vestigial, which means they're completely non-functional. They're just evolutionary leftovers from distant ancestors that could actually see their surroundings. You're probably asking yourself how this creature even manages to survive when it's basically a bright orange beacon that can't perceive anything visually. And truthfully, we don't have complete answers because these eels are so impossibly rare. But having non-functional eyes isn't actually a disadvantage in this environment. Down in these depths, vision is essentially worthless. There's zero sunlight, only occasional bioluminescent organisms. Instead, this eel has probably evolved to depend entirely on tactile sensation and detecting vibrations. It uses specialized nerve endings distributed along its entire body to perceive movement and shifts in water pressure around it. It's basically like having a superpower that works infinitely better than eyes ever could in absolute darkness. The abyss, maximum weirdness achieved. Below the midnight zone is the abyssal zone. This is where eels reach peak weirdness. And the most famous weird eel down here is the Gulper eel. When you first see it, it doesn't even look like a real animal. Its mouth is absolutely huge. When it opens, it looks like its entire head is turning inside out. The jaws can expand way bigger than its own body, creating this giant pouch that can swallow prey almost as big as the eel itself. When it's just swimming normally, you can barely tell what you're looking at. And no, those tiny dots aren't its nose. Those are its eyes. They're super small compared to everything else. Most deep-sea hunters chase their food, not the Gulper eel. It just floats in the dark and waits. It has a glowing light at the end of its tail that attracts curious fish and shrimp. This is a trick it probably stole from anglerfish. When something gets too close, the eel opens its jaw like a huge net and sucks everything in with one gulp. When it's not eating, the mouth folds back into a small head. This somehow makes it look even creepier. Its body is super thin and totally black. Its eyes are tiny dots. And that tail glows like a lonely light in endless darkness. It's one of the most alien-looking animals on Earth. Proof that the deeper you go, the weirder things get. So where's the brain? It looks like it's mostly just a mouth. Where does it keep its brain? Here's the weird part. It barely has one. The Gulper eel's brain is tiny, hidden behind those giant jaws. Most of its head is just stretchy skin, muscle, and empty space so the mouth can expand. Its brain is about the size of a pea tucked above the throat. That's why this eel shows up in horror video games like Subnautica and Dredge. Game makers use Gulper eels as references because they already look like monsters. They don't need to change much. They live 6,000 to 10,000 feet underwater and almost never come up. They're not aggressive. They don't attack like sharks. They just drift and gulp. Their jaws are big but not strong. They're made to trap floating prey, not tear things apart. You're not on the menu unless you're smaller than a ruler. But if one tried to swallow something human-sized, you wouldn't get bitten. You just get sucked into a giant mouth. The deep sea swallower, even creepier. Go even deeper, and you'll find the Gulper eel's cousin, the deep-sea swallower. It's basically an even more disturbing version. Its whole body is just a mouth attached to a stretchy stomach. The jaw can open wider than its own body. Its stomach can stretch so much that it can eat prey bigger than itself. When it swallows something huge, its body inflates like a balloon and looks barely alive anymore. Then it just floats there for days, digesting. What's the difference from the Gulper eel? The deep-sea swallower focuses more on its expandable stomach that makes it look absolutely freaky. But we don't know much about these eels because they're so rare. Most of what scientists know comes from quick camera clips that last maybe 10 seconds before the eel disappears. The one-jaw eel, nature's weirdest creations. Is there anything even deeper and creepier? Kind of. While Gulper eels live in the upper abyss, there's one eel living deeper near the bottom. It might even reach the hadal zone. It's called the one-jaw eel. This eel literally has just one jaw. It's one of the weirdest eels possible because why would having no upper jaw be helpful? Scientists think it feeds by using its single lower jaw like a hook to stab drifting prey, then swallows it whole because it obviously can't chew. Their eyes are basically tiny useless specks. They don't even have real fins anymore. Whatever fins are left have merged into their tail to help them hover. These animals are so rare that scientists know even less about them than Gulper eels. We just know they're born missing body parts, but somehow haven't gone extinct. If researchers hadn't caught a few in nets over the years, nobody would know they exist. Why eels can't go deeper? So deep-sea eels explode when brought to the surface. Got it. But why can't they go even deeper into the hadal zone? At a certain depth, the water pressure becomes too much. Not just for their bodies, but for how they're built. Eels need flexible bodies to twist, swim, and hunt. But past about 26,000 or 30,000 feet deep, that flexibility stops helping and starts hurting. The extreme pressure squeezes every air pocket, every muscle fiber, until they can barely move. This is probably why the one-jaw eel looks so weird. It's not built to thrive, it's built to barely survive. At those depths, evolution isn't about getting better anymore. It's just about surviving. The one-jaw eel has become the simplest version of life possible. No working eyes, no real fins, no upper jaw, barely any color. Everything unnecessary has been removed by pressure and darkness. What lives in the deepest parts are creatures that barely swim. They mostly just float. They exist just to survive, not to do well. Maybe the one-jaw eel looks so creepy because it's a type of life we were never supposed to see. It's life pushed to the absolute limit in the most extreme place on Earth. The way eels change as they go deeper is one of the most dramatic changes in nature. From colorful hunters in shallow water to barely alive mouths with tails in the abyss, eels show us what happens when life adapts to extreme places. Every weird feature has a reason. Giant mouths catch rare food. No eyes because vision is useless. Thin bodies save energy. Glowing tails attract prey. It's all about surviving where survival should be impossible. And the craziest part? We've probably only found a tiny fraction of deep-sea eels that exist. The ocean floor is so huge and unexplored that there could be dozens of undiscovered eel species down there right now. Some probably even weirder than what we found. The deep ocean is one of the last unexplored places on Earth.